is Larry Klayman, and I'm chairman and general counsel of Freedom Watch. I brought a lawsuit along with Charlie Strange, Marianne Strange, and J.J. Little with regard to the unconstitutional violation by the National Security Agency and other government defendants, including President Obama himself, in the telephonic communications of nearly all Americans. About 2 years ago, we got the court here in Washington, D.C., and I'm standing in front of it right now, to enter a preliminary injunction that activity was unconstitutional. The judge ordered that it stop, but he stayed his decision, that is, it didn't go into effect, to allow the government, the Obama Justice Department, to take an appeal. That appeal was recently decided, and the appellate court sent the case back to Judge Richard Leon, a very courageous judge who entered that preliminary injunction, to determine how this case should proceed. And today we had a hearing where we again asked Judge Leon to enter a preliminary injunction with regard to intercepting telephonic metadata, in this particular instance, from Verizon. And telephonic metadata not only gets into all of our calls, but also it can get into the content of those calls for not just the plaintiffs in this case, of which I'm one, but all Americans. And we've got a very favorable reception from the judge. He said on numerous occasions today and in some prior hearings that even one day of a constitutional violation, and this is what it is, a violation of the Fourth Amendment to grab everybody's telephonic metadata, is in fact an unreasonable search and seizure. It has a chilling effect on our ability to talk freely over the phone. It creates a situation where the people fear the government, that they could be gathering information about them, information which is personal and otherwise, and use it against them to destroy them, that even one day is too much, the judge said. So we are very hopeful that sometime in the next week or so, the judge will re-enter his preliminary injunction and order the National Security Agency to cease and desist, that is, stop from spying on all of us Americans. And that's very important. Our fundamental right of privacy, our right to be secure in our homes, our right to communicate in business and with loved ones. And I'm a lawyer, and I talk with Mr. Strange, another plaintiff, frequently, and his wife. I can't talk freely on the phone anymore, and that's what this is all about. It's about the government's heavy hand. The judge has found that this conduct is almost Orwellian, such as from the book 1984, and we're confident that the judge is going to order it to stop in the near future. During the course of the hearing, the lawyer for the government, Ms. Julia Berman, made certain arguments. The government brought 11 lawyers to this hearing. And when I use the government's name, I use it loosely. We're talking about the Obama Justice Department, which, frankly, I don't consider to be a bona fide part of the government. But they showed up. They made the arguments as best they could because they had no facts on their side. They didn't have the law on their side. And at one point, the government lawyer referred to the American people as little people. Well, we're not little people. We are what this country is all about. We the people. It is our rights. It's our government. It's our Justice Department. It's our National Security Agency. And for them to come in an arrogant way and say we can do as we please, that the little people have no rights, that alleged spying to protect us from terrorism, and as the court pointed out, there hasn't been one instance where grabbing everybody's telephonic metadata has prevented that. This is an outrage. And we've never said that the National Security Agency or CIA should not do legitimate surveillance. If there's a reasonable suspicion that is probable cause that someone's communicating with a terrorist, then they should have access to that data. But that does not give them the right to grab the metadata of hundreds of millions of Americans that have no connection to terrorism or committing any crime. That's a violation of our Fourth Amendment of the Constitution, and also our First Amendment, freedom of association and freedom of speech.
I'm Caroline George with the National Research Council. The government argued, the Department of Justice argued quite strongly that there was a special needs doctrine. Do you remember the argument and what the judge said about the intelligence gap that they claimed was a national security interest?
Special needs means that the government has a unique need to do what it proposes to do and what it has been doing in grabbing everyone's telephonic communications. Well, the government doesn't have a special need because under the laws that currently exist, without doing this, the government, that is the NSA, can get a warrant, and they can get any information they need on the showing of probable cause with Verizon or any telephone provider. They don't need a law that says that they can grab everybody's telephone calls at any time, any place.
But the government prosecutor argued that they were just merely collecting the data. They weren't actually searching it yet. They were just collecting the data. What's your answer to that?
My answer to that is that's what the lawyer was told to say. We have no proof that that's the case. And in fact, the Inspector General himself of the NSA, the National Security Agency, has found that that isn't the case, that there have been thousands of violations where the content of telephone communications of Americans that had no connection with terrorism were in fact accessed. In fact, some of the employees at the NSA were caught using the surveillance capabilities to see whether their girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, and wife were cheating on them. And that obviously is a gross violation of privacy, notwithstanding the fact that we don't condone cheating on your spouse or your girlfriend or boyfriend.
The judge referenced a couple of different acts. One was the Patriot Act, the other is the USA Freedom Act. And this is supposedly a stopgap measure between the two acts, is it not?
I wouldn't call it a stopgap measure. The USA Freedom Act allows the government to get information from Verizon. Verizon and the other telephonic carriers, cell phone and landline, will keep the data, and any time that government needs that information, it can go with probable cause and get it. What is the stopgap measure is that for 6 months, the old program under Section 215 of the Patriot Act, which allows the government to grab everybody's telephonic communications, continued in effect. So I argued to the court at the end of the hearing that the entire law is unconstitutional because it can't be separated, is that there was no constitutional right to allow even for a 6-month transition, and therefore the entire law must be thrown out. And that won't harm the United States, and that won't harm our national security, because anytime the security agencies or the FBI need information, they can go to Verizon and the other telephone carriers and get that information, with or without either the Patriot Act, the old law, or the new law, the USA Freedom Act.
Do you think there's any chance the government may throw out the USA Freedom Act?
Not without a court order, they won't, no. The information with regard to Charlie Strange, one of the plaintiffs, and Marianne Strange, these issues in terms specifically of what happened to them, other than just grabbing their telephonic communications, was not before the court at this point. But it will be before the court soon, and a jury when we go to trial. The court simply found, and it did it simply for speed, that grabbing everyone's telephone communications was a violation in and of itself. But what happened to Mr. Strange is they went into his computer, they photographed him, they did certain things to try to intimidate him. That's going to come out at trial, and that's for later on in this case. But it's a very serious matter, it's outrageous, and they even did it with me. And others, because there have been very strange things happening on my telephone and on my computers.